Doctors could be on the brink of a breakthrough.
Migraines.
How to control them. Tame a migraine.
A severe migraine.
Throbbing, recurring headaches.
Given all the noise, navigating the migraine experience can be confusing and scary, but you do not have to do it alone. Welcome to the Migraine Guy Podcast, the official podcast of themigraineguy.com and theheadachereview.com. Now, here's your host.
What is up, Migraine pod-ience? It's Kevin here, the Migraine Guy, bringing you this week's edition of the Migraine Guy podcast. If you are new to the pod, you just found it on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you listen to, I hope, if you can, that you will leave a 5-star review on iTunes, as well as some positive comments about why you like the show. Also, if you are new, hit that subscribe button to get updated. We're approaching episode 50, so lots of good content in the archive. So if you're new, check out the old stuff and hit subscribe to get alerted when there are new pods. So, the way we like to start this podcast is by me giving you a brief update on my own migraine life. So, this last couple weeks have been a little weird. Sleep has been on and off. Okay, it's been okay. I've been much more regimented about the melatonin and tizanidine, the muscle relaxer I'm on, and it's definitely helping now that it's been out of my system for a couple weeks. So seeing some good progress on the sleep front, which is, as many of you know, the number one way for me to add to my migraine frequency throughout the month. Is if I get bad sleep, the next day is almost guaranteed to have a level 4 or 6 migraine. So the sleep front has been doing pretty well. The weirdest thing, though, happened to me actually yesterday. The day was starting out normally. I was doing some stuff for my parents on their home, doing some repairs and stuff for them, putting up some light fixtures, whatnot. And I was feeling okay. You know, had probably kind of a level 2 or 3 pain migraine, which is pretty normal for me. And just kind of doing my stuff, going about it. The pressure wasn't too bad. The pain was pretty tolerable. And then on the way home after doing some work for them, the pressure in my head just like went up to, if pressure was on a 1 to 10 scale, was probably like a 6 or a 7, and it happened just in the 20-minute drive home. And after I got back home, then the pain started to really kind of start pounding in my head, and I certainly wasn't hearing any sirens or anything like that, but it was definitely like this all hands on deck, DEFCON 1, we are in serious trouble, do everything you can, get the ice packs. And it was at the point where it seemed like it was going to get so bad that I actually took a sumatriptan, which is, you know, if you're new to the migraine world, is a triptan, which is an abortive medication. So if you take it within a certain amount of time when your migraine starts, it does have a high likelihood that it is going to reduce your migraine pain or maybe even stop the migraine altogether. And I just have had the worst luck with triptans. They usually make me more dizzy than reduce pain. So typically I'll have a migraine at a 7. It might knock it down to a 5 or a 6, but then I'm extremely dizzy too. So, you know, my history with triptans isn't great, but they're the only abortive I have right now, besides taking another muscle relaxer and just hoping to sleep it off. And it was like 3 in the afternoon, so I didn't want to do that because I was going to screw up my sleep cycle. So I went ahead and popped the triptan, threw on my my migraine hat, and had the ice cap ready to go. The ice cap usually comes out of the freezer a little too cold, so I start with the migraine hat, leave the ice cap out on the counter to kind of warm up a little bit, and then by the time the migraine hat has lost its cold, the ice cap is ready to go. So I have a nice cycle there. So I had all that ready, chugged a bunch of water, ate some food, put on my Somni-Light migraine glasses, and popped the triptan, and found a nice spot in the house where I could just lay down and hope that the pain went away. And it was the craziest thing. This has never happened to me. Within 30 minutes, the migraine had gone from, level 6, 7 pain and pressure down to about a 2 or a 3. And so the day was saved. It did take about 2 hours before I did take the triptan. So I got home, noticed that the pain was kicking up, started eating, and typically you're supposed to take a triptan much sooner than I did. But given my history with them, I was kind of thinking, well, it's not going to help anyway. I'll do my other stuff to try and reduce the migraine pain. So had I taken the triptan earlier, the effects might have even been better. But it was just pretty weird for me because the triptans usually never like save my day for me, and they did yesterday. So I was quite happy that happened, and then I was able to do some other stuff in the evening. I was able to hang out with my sister, hang out with my wife, and just have like a normal Thursday. So that was pretty cool. So let's hope that happens more often because it has not been the norm up until today. So that's what's going on with me. What we're going to do next, if you're new to the pod again, we'll hop into some migraine news, then a migraine tip of the week, and then we will dive into a listener comment, question, or story. So stay tuned for that, and let's hop into the news. All right, so this bit of migraine news comes to us from Neurology Advisor, and the title of the article is Novel Oral Treatment Safe, Effective for Migraine Headache Relief. And with all of the news about the CGRP meds, the Aimovigs, and the other companies bringing out CGRP meds, this kind of medication is kind of not being talked about as much in the migraine world, so I thought I would highlight it. And the medication that is being studied here is lasmiditan, and it is currently not FDA approved, but the article here is talking about one of the big studies that they're doing right now to get FDA approval in the United States for it. And lasmiditan is an abortive. It's a serotonin receptor agonist, like many migraine medications actually are, and a number of triptans have been shown to act on the same kind of receptors in the body that lasmiditan is working on. However, they also have some other things that they interact with that lasmiditan is not acting on, and so has had better results in the studies that they have done so far. For example, there have been two big studies that have looked at lasmiditan, and the first one was called the Samurai study, and the other one was the Spartan study. And a significantly greater portion of patients receiving 200 milligrams of lasmiditan in the Samurai study and the Spartan study trials achieved headache-free status at 2 hours when they took their 2 hours after they took their first dose. In the Samurai study, 32.2% were headache-free versus 15.3% either taking placebo or a different medication. And in the Spartan study, 38.8% were headache-free versus 21% for either placebo or other medication. And so Spartan and Samurai studies have shown that, at least in the way in which these studies were conducted, that this lasmiditan does have more efficacy, will attack your migraine and get it to stop faster on average versus other medications. Now, of course, 32% of participants and 38% is roughly 1 in 3. And so that might mean that only 33%, a third of migraine sufferers, would actually see a benefit with lasmiditan. It's certainly not supposed to be some silver bullet. It's not supposed to be the cure for migraine. But if we can have another tool in our arsenal that is more effective than your basic triptan or your basic abortive in general, that of course is a welcomed new medication, especially if the side effects are fairly similar to other side effects that we're used to with migraine medications, dizziness, fatigue, lethargy, all of those kind of things that we're used to. If we can get the migraine to stop, sometimes those side effects are definitely worth it, especially when the pain creeps above a 7 on the pain scale. So this is just an interesting take on some new medications that are being developed by pharmaceutical companies that are not CGRP based. And so if you were like me and were watching the Migraine World Summit back in April, some of the doctors there are always saying the same thing. They're saying there's lots of good medications on the horizon, lots of good medications, lots of good stuff coming out, but I'd only been really hearing about the CGRP stuff, and so it is interesting that they are even working on more targeted abortive medications for migraine patients. Another thing that was interesting about this lasmiditan is that it is being developed specifically for migraine, whereas other medications like triptans and stuff, were developed for various reasons and found to have benefits for migraine sufferers, and so they very often get prescribed to migraine sufferers. But lasmiditan is being developed specifically for migraine patients, which is pretty cool. We are getting some more medications that can help us, and they're not going to help us by accident, right? They're not going to prescribe, the doctors aren't going to prescribe them to us and it just seems to help migraines. No, these are medications that are being developed to help us specifically. So that is pretty encouraging, because if one pharmaceutical company is working on something like this, you can bet that there are at least 2 or 3 other ones that are wanting to get their product to market so that they can make the money that they make. But if they help us, then I guess I'm willing to help them make a little bit more money. So that's pretty cool. I will of course put a link in the show notes below to the article from Neurology Advisor. That's kind of the basic stuff. The summary, or the article is basically a summary of both the Samurai study and the Spartan study and gives you some of the numbers there. There's no, as far as I could tell, no estimated FDA approval date for lasmiditan, so I don't know if it's expected to be done by 2018 or if they're planning on a 2019 or a 2020 release. So not really sure on where the FDA is with that. Some of the other medications that have been developed for the last couple of years have estimated FDA approval rates, right? By 2019, by the end of 2019, we should have 4 CGRP medications on the market. I don't know when the lasmiditan or competitor products like it are going to be out on the market. So that part kind of stinks because we don't know when it's coming out. And if you email the pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly and Company, they just have their normal spiel about, well, we're conducting our research, working hand in hand with the FDA to bring a safe and effective treatment, yada, yada, yada. So no answers there. So don't know when it's coming out. If you do know, please hit me up on social media. Just, tag the Migraine Guy, whatever social media platform you use, and hit me up with an article or a person that I could talk to get some answers about that. That being said, let us now move on to your migraine tip of the week. So this migraine tip of the week has to do with outdoor air quality and your migraine frequency, intensity, or severity going up. A 2010 study concluded, quote, available evidence supports the idea of a positive association between levels of some outdoor air pollutants and increased severity, frequency, or medical consultation rates for headache and migraine. These effects occur across the spectrum of headache severity, ranging from increased frequency or duration of headaches that do not prompt medical consultation to an increase in the occurrence of more severe headaches that result in emergency department visits and even hospitalization, end quote. And so the idea that outdoor air quality and pollutants and even allergens are affecting your migraines isn't just something that is anecdotal or perhaps something that you just think is going on. There is some research to back it up and support that claim. So then the question is, well, what can you do about it? Well, when it comes to outdoor air quality, as in when you're outside of your home, obviously the options are somewhat limited, and they're limited primarily based on how you want to look out in society. Some people opt for scarves or masks outdoors. People in China, for example, do it to avoid toxic air in the cities there, and also because they do not want to get sick, and that's true for Asia more generally. When I was in the Japanese airport last summer, it was extremely common, and they even have kind of fashionable masks that people were wearing over their face, the kind of surgical masks, the kind of construction masks, the little paper ones that kind of fit over your nose and mouth area. They had designs on them, like some looked like cats, some looked like dogs, some looked like dragons. And so it was very normal in their culture to have those on in order to avoid air quality issues as well as sickness issues. But it's not super common, in the quote-unquote Western society to wear them. So if you're willing to kind of look non-normal in our society, then you could obviously do that. That will help filter out some of the particulates in the air. But that is kind of your options when you go outside. Of course, if you wanted to get a respirator, a 3M P100 filtering mask, you could wear that out in society. But of course, again, this is all contingent on how kind of non-normal, how weird you want to look to other people. Now, when it comes to inside your house, there are, of course, a lot more options that you can invest in. You need to make sure that you are changing, and this kind of is basic, but lots of people forget it. You need to make sure that the air filter in your HVAC system, in your heating and cooling system, is changed regularly. If you're using the cheapest of the cheap air filters, the non-pleated air filters, you definitely want to invest a couple more bucks in at least pleated air filters. I also moonlight as a home inspector in my area, and pleated air filters are vastly superior to the kind of standard meshy looking air filters out there. The meshy looking ones you can see through, and that means air can get through extremely easy. The pleated ones offer a lot more filtering properties for the air that's going through, and that can help reduce your airborne contaminants, help reduce the airborne contaminants rather in your home. Now, the more heavy duty filter you use, the more strain is going to happen to your HVAC system. So going for a HEPA filter, for example, in your HVAC system is going to put a lot more strain on the blower motor, because it takes a lot more force to get the air through that very, very heavy filter fabric. And so unless your HVAC system is rated for a HEPA filter, it's usually good to invest in a mid-range pleated air filter for your home, and not try to put in a heavy duty one, because it's going to put a lot of wear and tear on your HVAC system. So as long as it's pleated and kind of mid-range in price, then you are probably doing as much as you can to filter out the air pollutants in your HVAC system. Another thing you can do inside of your home is to invest in a HEPA filter that plugs into a wall outlet and filters air per room. And these typically go for, I believe, $20 to $30 on Amazon. I'll put a link to the one that I have in my house that I keep in my bedroom, and then we have one in our living room. And the difference in air quality might seem like it's not going to be noticeable, but for me it was very noticeable in terms of allergens. So we got ours, I think this must have been back in February or April. I could have looked at the Amazon history, but it was springtime, right when, the allergens are starting to come out. We live in Nebraska, so we get tons of cotton and ragweed, and you notice every morning that the allergens are much more plentiful because your nose is runny, your throat's dry, your eyes are kind of dry, and it takes a little bit after waking up to kind of snap out of it, so to speak. And I noticed that the first week that we used the HEPA air filter in our bedroom, every time I woke up, my nose wasn't stuffy. I did, have some normal allergy things. It's not like it cured or fixed everything related to it, but my nose being stuffy and waking up constantly in the middle of the night because I couldn't breathe was something that up until us getting these filters for our bedroom and living room, I was noticing all the time. And then after we got the filters, I noticed that I was sleeping through the night a little better. I wasn't waking up unable to breathe. I didn't have to wake up in the middle of the night to go blow my nose. And so that was a welcome feature. And so I don't know if it is helping my migraines go down in frequency or severity on its own, just because the air is better, because I haven't really noticed a correlation between air quality and my own migraines. But I do know that when I sleep better, when I don't have to get up 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night to go blow my nose or because I can't breathe, that I do sleep better. And better sleep is, of course, one of the most important thing migraine sufferers have to worry about. The kind of pop phrase right now is sleep hygiene, and so we all need to be really concerned about our sleep hygiene, and this helps me sleep much better. But if you do notice that your own migraines are made worse by air quality and allergens, then a HEPA filter in your bedroom that you can plug into the wall rather than install in your HVAC system might be a good investment for you. And the filters typically last about 6 months. Now, the filter replacements, I believe, are somewhere in the $15 range. HEPA filters are, the best filters. They filter out some radioactive properties in the air. They filter out things like asbestos and mold, and so they are constantly interacting with the air when they're open, once you get them out of their plastic packaging. And once you do that, then you need to mark the calendar, plan something on Amazon to ship you new filters on a scheduled basis, so that you are always using a filter that is actually filtering and not using one that is clogged up because it filters so many different things. Now, I know that that's not going to be the best solution for everybody, and sometimes $20 or $30 to spend on a air filter versus maybe gas or groceries for the week isn't going to be something everybody can swing, and I know that. But if you do notice that your migraines are correlated or seem to get worse when air quality goes down and allergens are in the air, then it isn't something that you need to buy right now, but it is something that you may want to save for and use as an investment for your health. That being said, let's get to our migraine question of the week. So this week's migraine question of the week comes to us from Sarah Cairo from our Migraine Guy support group. She asks, quote, I would greatly appreciate a discussion of TN or trigeminal neuralgia and how it can occur on its own, but it can also be part of migraine. The word neuralgia just means nerve pain, so that doesn't tell us much. I've also always been curious if migraine meds work for TN and Botox. I have face pain and pressure a lot, but it's migraine for me. End quote. Well, Sarah's question is a good one and is going to take us a bit in the weeds in terms of what are the differences, the distinctions in trigeminal neuralgia that separate it from other facial pain and head pain conditions, including migraine. So, important things to keep in mind is just what exactly trigeminal neuralgia, or TN, I'm going to say for short so I can save some time, is. What is it and what isn't it? Well, TN is a common facial pain disorder. The annual incidence of TN is 4 to 12 per 100,000. TN most often occurs above age 50, although it can happen at younger ages and in children, and females are affected slightly more than males. TN also has a different name. The name is tic douloureux. I think that's a French name, so I'm sure I have butchered it. Basically, TN is often caused by trigeminal nerve compression because of abnormal vessels in the area, and this can lead to damage of the sheathing, the myelin sheathing of the nerve itself, and can sometimes lead to hyperactive signals from the nerve that is damaged. Sometimes compression can be caused by a tumor or a vascular malformation, but basically the idea is that something is going on that is putting excess pressure and damage onto the nerves in your face, the trigeminal nerves in your face. And basic things that can trigger the trigeminal neuralgia to show itself, to actually manifest that there is nerve damage, can be very, very simple basic things like brushing your teeth, having your face or jaw touched, maybe going to the dentist sends this off, for example. But that does not mean that trigeminal neuralgia and TMJ are supposed to be the same thing. TMJ is a very different thing. TMJ, of course, is temporomandibular joint disorder. Unlike TMJ, attacks of TN are often brief and sharp and can occur without any jaw movement on its own because it's a nerve damage. The nerves can be triggered without the jaw, of course, moving, because you could have your face touched, or maybe the blood vessels in the area just swell and put excess pressure on the damaged nerves, and it triggers a very brief and intense pain. Also, with TMJ, you very often notice a jaw popping sensation, and that does not very often occur with trigeminal neuralgia, with TN. And so don't get those two things confused. They are different disorders, though they both very often attack similar parts of your face and provide, very, very intense unilateral pain. Now, diagnosing these, of course, is a very difficult process for most doctors, even specialists. These diagnoses are based on the description of your symptoms to your doctor, and your doctor may provide an examination to see if they can distinguish particular kinds of pain and triggers for that pain from other symptoms that they are aware of. TN patients often have a normal neurological exam. So you're going to go in and sit down with your doctor. They're going to poke and prod at your neck, your back. You're going to walk in front of them. They're going to ask you to move your head certain directions. They're going to, ask you to hold your hands and feet out and resist their pressure to make sure that your brain is functioning well and that your central and peripheral nervous systems can work well. All of those normal neurological exam things. If there are bilateral TN symptoms, numbness of the trigeminal nerve distribution in your face, may be needed, right? They might do some kind of nerve block in order to just kind of numb or deaden those nerves that have been damaged in the process. And though that might stink in one level, might seem a little scary also, it could help reduce the pain because those nerves will no longer be able to send off pain signals to your brain. The second part of Sarah's question was whether or not migraine medications can also help with TN, and the answer is maybe. Anticonvulsants are used for helping reduce the symptoms associated with TN, and the reasons seem pretty obvious, right? Anticonvulsants are going to calm down nerve activity in your brain, and so even though the pain signals might be getting sent from your face, from your TN areas, affected areas, to your brain will be a little bit slower in processing them, I think is the idea. And that is very similar to migraines. You want your brain activity or neurological cascading to be slowed down so that the migraine dissipates or doesn't occur as often as usual. Now, I think one of the most common anticonvulsants, at least during some of the research I was doing for TN that is an anticonvulsant, is going to be a medication known as Tegretol, which I do not know of any migraine patients who have used Tegretol or been prescribed Tegretol for a prophylactic, for preventative purposes with migraine. But I'm sure there's probably a couple out there, so feel free to hit me up on social media and let me know that you do exist. Other medications do include gabapentin for TN, which is interesting because that is sometimes prescribed for migraine patients because it is an anticonvulsant and a nerve pain medication. And of course, the nerve pain makes sense with TN, but sometimes migraine patients do get prescribed gabapentin as kind of a second or third tier medication in conjunction with other medications. And usually gabapentin, from the people that I've spoken to, not any doctors that I've discussed this with, but the people I've spoken to who do get gabapentin typically have some kind of neck condition or some sort of neurological condition on top of migraine, and the gabapentin sometimes does help reduce their overall migraine frequency, though it certainly isn't a silver bullet for that either. But there is a little overlap, as you would expect from a disorder like TN that involves your nerves, and a disorder like migraine, which also involves your, the nerves in your brain, your neurology. And so there is a little overlap there, but not a ton, though you may see someone who has TN and migraine be given a combination of medications that hopefully can help both conditions, such as maybe Tegretol and gabapentin. And as regards the final part of Sarah's question, whether or not Botox can help treat TN, the answer is yes. It has been prescribed for quite a few years now to help reduce overall TN pain and symptoms in people, and I think there's a study going all the way back to 2005 that started looking at this, as well as one as recently as 2017, September 2017, and most of the studies show an overall positive effect of the Botox, sometimes with it being even greater than 50% reduction in pain. And the answers there are fairly obvious, right? Like, you're deadening the nerves for a certain amount of time in the part of your face that the doctor thinks is associated or going to be very, very helpful in numbing to reduce your TN pain. And so the effects of Botox there seem pretty simple in the sense that you have a nerve pain condition, and Botox will deaden those nerves for a while. So it seems pretty obvious that would be a good way to go. And so if you do get Botox for your migraines and also have TN, you may be able to have your doctor not only do the injections in the areas that they think are going to help with your migraines, but maybe they could also then inject you in your face in the areas that will help with your TN condition. So great question, Sarah. Lots of detail here. I'm sure I oversimplified certain things in order to make the question the answer fairly concise. If you think I left anything important out, please hit me up on social media and let me know what I left out. That's the Migraine Guy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let me know if there's anything I should have read, anything I excluded, and if there is anything serious, I will, of course, update the in a future podcast, update the answer so that it is more accurate and more reflective of the current data on it. That being said, let's get to the end of the show. All right, everyone, I want to thank you all for listening to this week's edition of the Migraine Guy podcast. We got a lot of good stuff coming up in the next few weeks. We've got tons of listener questions. I may devote an entire podcast just to trying to address the questions, as well as incorporating your comments and stories into the show. I want to have a very community-driven podcast, and so including the community is probably the easiest way to do that. Additionally, we're going to be doing an interview with a fellow migraine sufferer, but someone who actually suffers from migralepsy, and he reached out to me. He's trying to get his own kind of social media accounts built up. He wants to help other people in conditions like his, and I've known him online for quite a while now. We've chatted on YouTube quite a bit and on Facebook as well, and so we're going to be collaborating in order to get him out into the spotlight, as well as the kind of advocacy that he is trying to raise. So all that is coming in the future. As usual, if you are feeling isolated or alone or needing a support group, maybe your immediate family and friends misunderstand your migraines, or maybe they even criticize you for having them or needing to cancel all the time, maybe work is hassling you, or maybe you've lost your job because of your migraines. All of those things can weigh heavy on the psyche of a migraine sufferer, can cause all sorts of negative thoughts and feelings to become your everyday experience in your own head, and all of that wears on any person, no matter how strong, over time. And the best way to combat that is to, of course, have a good relationship with your doctor, tell them what you're feeling, but also to have a support group. I have a Facebook support group. Just search the Migraine Guy support group. We are very active. We have lots of members, not as many members as a lot of the bigger groups. We're at about 1,300 members right now, but we are a very active group, and we take the support aspect of our group very seriously. If you're trying to sell stuff or bully people or get angry at people because of their answers, you will be dealt with quickly, because the group is a support group. So if you need support, if you need help, if you feel alone and don't want to anymore, just head over to Facebook, search the Migraine Guy support group, and request access. I do all of this, the Migraine Guy does all of this, and the support group does everything it does, because feeling alone is all too common when you have a chronic pain condition. And as I say every week, and I mean every week, you do not have to feel alone, because you are not alone. If you want to help keep everything that the Migraine Guy does free, then you can become a patron over at the website patreon.com. That's Patreon.com. Patreon lets people contribute funds to other people whose work they value. Becoming a patron does things for me, such as allowing me to buy new products so that I can do product review videos, so that you know whether or not a given migraine product actually works before you buy it. It also helps me do things like upgrade the microphones and cameras for both the YouTube channel and this podcast. And more importantly, it helps me be accountable to you, my migraine community. You can pledge as low as $1 a month if you want to, and every single dollar does help. Just head over to patreon.com/themigraineguy to become a patron today.